Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. The drug trade in Brazil is a significant problem, with the country being a major transit point for drugs entering South America from neighboring countries such as Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru. Brazil is also one of the largest consumer markets for drugs in the region. The illicit trade is dominated by powerful and violent drug gangs known as factions, which control the distribution of drugs in many of the country's cities and favelas. These factions engage in brutal turf wars with each other and with police, which has resulted in high levels of violence and homicide in many Brazilian cities. Drug trafficking in Brazil has also been linked to corruption at all levels of government, with some politicians and law enforcement officials believed to be directly involved in the trade. The Brazilian government has implemented a range of policies to combat the drug trade, including increased police presence in favelas, crackdowns on money laundering, and tougher sentencing for drug offences. However, these efforts have had limited to no success, and the drug trade remains a significant challenge for the country. The social and economic impact of the drug trade in Brazil is immense, with drug addiction and related problems such as poverty, violence, and social inequality affecting millions of Brazilians. Brazilian drug gangs, known as factions or cartels, are highly organized criminal organizations that control the drug trade in many parts of the country. They have become a dominant force in Brazil's criminal underworld, operating in favelas and other low-income areas, where they control the distribution of drugs such as cocaine, marijuana, and crack. These gangs are known for their extreme violence, including assassinations, kidnappings, and massacres, and they have been responsible for numerous homicides in Brazilian cities. They also engage in territorial battles with rival factions over control of drug markets and smuggling routes, which has resulted in a high level of violence and instability in some of Brazil's most impoverished communities. The gangs are highly organized and often have a hierarchical structure, with a small group of leaders at the top who control the operations of the organization. These leaders typically have a tight grip on the gang's operations, which include drug trafficking, money laundering, and extortion. They use intimidation, bribery, and violence to maintain their power and control over their territories, and they often have strong ties to corrupt politicians and police officers who provide them with protection and cover for their illicit activities. One of the most notorious drug gangs in Brazil is the Primeiro Comando da Capital, PCC, which is based in Sao Paulo and is believed to have more than 30,000 members across the country. The gang is known for its highly organized structure, strict code of conduct, and brutal tactics, including the use of beheadings, bombings, and prison riots. Other notable gangs include the Red Command, or Comando Vermelho, and Amigos dos Amigos, Friends of Friends, which are based in Rio de Janeiro, and the Family of the North, Família do Norte, which operates in the Amazon region. One of the notable differences between Brazilian criminal factions and Mexican drug cartels is the recruitment methods in which the groups use. Many such factions in Brazil, such as Comando Vermelho and Primeiro Comando da Capital, originated in prisons, initially as groups who were fighting for prisoners' rights and the better treatment of detainees. As the years passed, the groups would become involved in both national and international drug trafficking, as well as extortion, prostitution, and arms trafficking. Such gangs primarily recruit in prison and prey on the weak and vulnerable. When approached by such organisations to join their ranks, there is only one answer, which is yes. Rejecting an invitation to join such an organisation would make the subject a marked man in prison, making his life hell, or potentially even losing his life. Sometimes, such decisions are made purely to stay alive. Those who are in prison due to petty crimes such as theft are often targets due to their desire to escape poverty and desperation to provide for themselves or their family. The gangs will promise young inmates, often first-time offenders with a better life, filled with cash money, drugs, girls, and partying. Such an offer is often too much to turn down for those who have nothing to lose in the first place. The gangs will also adopt popular youth culture, getting involved in the local music scenes. Comando Vermelho, for example, will host funk street parties which are popular among the youth of Brazil. At the parties, they will often supply drugs, alcohol, and girls to groom young teenagers to recruit them into joining their faction. Although not as publicised as the atrocities committed by Mexican drug cartels, such as CJNG, Brazilian criminal factions are incredibly ruthless, as much, if not more than Mexican drug cartels. The internet is flooded with despicable videos from Brazil, showcasing unimaginable violence. Much like Mexican drug cartels, the use of extreme hyperviolence is bread and butter for Brazilian criminal factions. They will perpetrate horrific acts of violence on camera to intimidate both rival gangs and locals who dare go against them. They also utilise public displays of violence to actually win over local citizens by committing acts of mob justice in the name of caring for the community, as well as killing rivals and spinning propaganda, professing that they are not like those who they killed and will not interfere with the public unlike their rivals. Ultimately, their use of violence is a key strategy for their growth and control of areas, much like Mexican drug cartels. Unlike Mexico, however, such gruesome cases in Brazil often go under the radar despite their brutality. Very often, such graphic cases and videos offer very little backstory explaining the situation that led to such tragic events. Most cases do not get picked up by Brazilian or international media due to a sheer lack of interest among the general online public, despite the depraved nature of such cases. But nevertheless, let's get into the topic of today's video. 3 gruesome axe murders perpetrated by Brazilian drug gangs. Number 1. Junkyard murder. In 2018, a gruesome video made the rounds on social media depicting the brutal murder of a 17-year-old male. Initially, the clip caused much confusion in regards to where the horrific incident took place. Much like the case with several videos from Brazil, the clip was actually falsely claimed to have taken place in India. This has become a common trend surrounding videos from Brazil due to the lack of backstory behind them. It was initially claimed by several on social media that the video was filmed in West Bengal in India, and that the victim was targeted by supporters of the political party Trinamool Congress, which was found to be untrue. There were also other false reports that the video was a homophobic murder that took place in Morocco. After much discussion surrounding the case on social media, the victim was revealed as 17-year-old Wesley Tiago de Souza Carvalho, who was killed on the 30th of December 2017 in the city of Fortaleza in northeastern Brazil, an area in which has been plagued by gang activity in recent years. Following the victim's name being revealed to the public, there were further claims made from some on social media that the murder was a homophobic hate crime. However, local police ruled this out and stated that the victim was not part of the LGBT community, and that the killing was more than likely related to gang activity. Many gangs operate in the area, such as Guardias do Estado, Comando Vermelho, and Família do Norte. It is very likely that one of the aforementioned gangs, or a street gang affiliated with them, were responsible for the savage murder. The video itself was uploaded online immediately after the murder in late 2017, but only started to make the rounds by mid-2018 due to the social media campaigns claiming the video to be from India. The video itself is 47 seconds long, and it is shot during the day. The setting is that of a rural area that looks like a junkyard or some sort of wasteland. As you play the video, you see and hear pure commotion. You see a mob of young males, at least 4 or 5 chasing the victim, Tiago de Souza Carvalho, while hitting him with sticks and rocks. He tries to run away while screaming, though he falls and loses his footing. When he falls to the ground, rocks are thrown on him, and he is beaten with thick wooden sticks while still screaming. One of the killers in the mob has an axe and strikes the victim at least twice, once in the leg and once in the shoulder. I can't describe how frenzied the attack is. It's incredibly violent. The victim continues to scream as he is brutalized by his attackers. The victim is then struck in the head multiple times with a 2x4, which stops his haunting screams. After the blows to the head, he is still alive, but is very groggy. He is beaten some more, and has more rocks thrown at him, before the killer with the axe then strikes him 3 times in the throat. A large rock is then thrown on the victim's head. The cameraman gets closer, and it appears that the victim is now dead. His head is covered in blood and looks to be completely destroyed. This is where the video ends. Upon watching the video, it's easy to see how people mistook it for a lynch mob case due to the frenzied and frantic nature of the attack. The screams from the victim are horrible, and the rage and pack mentality of the killers is extremely disturbing. It's a tragic and upsetting video. Please do not search for it. Number 2. Pickaxe to the face. I've been aware of this clip, more or less, since I started my channel. Many have recommended that I cover the case. The exact date as to when the video made its way online is unknown, but it is regarded as one of the most brutal videos to come out of Brazil. Upon searching online, I couldn't find any clues relating as to why the murder transpired or who were the perpetrators. The only thing that can be deduced from the video is that it looks like a gangland execution. Again, this video is very hard to watch, so please do not search it out. The video is 1 minute and 52 seconds long, and it is shot at the middle of the night in what appears to be a rural area, possibly in a rainforest. As you play the video, you see the victim who has his hands tied up and with a gag around his mouth. He is laying in a shallow grave, the place where he would eventually rest for good. Someone is pulling the rope that has his hands tied together so that he cannot cover his face with his hands. You then see a pickaxe, which is being held by someone off camera. He holds it in front of the victim's face, appearing to mock him and to let him know this is how he's about to go out. The cameraman fixates on the victim for a while. He intermittently closes his eyes and has a look of resignation on his face, but not fear. You hear the killers in the video talk, and they sound like they are trying to keep their voices down. It may be my hearing, but it does sound like one of the killers says, "Comando Vermelho," but I may be wrong on that. Comando Vermelho, of course, being one of the deadliest gangs in Brazil. After a few seconds, the killer with the pickaxe lines the tip of the axe head with the victim's eye. He pulls back and then swings the axe. He misses the eye, but the pickaxe tip hits the victim's forehead. It doesn't pierce the skull, but causes a huge gash, and the victim appears disoriented after the first strike. His eyes glass over after the first blow. The killer strikes again. This time, the tip of the pickaxe penetrates the victim's left eye. As he pulls it out, blood starts to leak like a faucet. The killer then repeatedly strikes the victim on the left side of his head with the pickaxe multiple times, piercing the skull, driving into his brain. At one point, the pickaxe gets stuck in the victim's skull. After the first few strikes, the victim's body spasms as the metal axe head penetrates the brain. The killer then strikes the victim a couple of more times in the same spot, on one occasion twisting and turning the pickaxe as it is stuck in his skull. By this point, the victim is obviously dead, and he has a huge hole on the left side of his head. Blood is pouring at such a rate that it is audible, and you see a large pool of blood build up between the victim's lifeless arms. The killers in the video sound so nonchalant, almost as if they were taking a stroll in the park on a summer's day, as opposed to brutally murdering someone. The cameraman gives a closer shot of the victim's fatal wound, and you see the blood leaking like a waterfall. He continues to film until the stream of blood stops. You hear the killers talk in the background, and someone can also be heard on a radio or a mobile phone. The video then ends as the cameraman is still fixated on the lifeless victim. The clip is extremely graphic, and I can understand as to why many call it one of the most brutal videos from Brazil. It is extremely bloody and gory. Once again, I'd recommend that you do not search for the clip for your own sanity. Number 3. Rainforest Axe Murder. Much like the previous case, this video is extremely violent, with very little backstory surrounding the murder. The only references online in which I found surrounding the case was that the video was indeed from Brazil, and once again was a gangland killing. No sources online cite the reason for the murder or who was responsible. The clip is extremely violent, so once again, please do not search for it. The video itself is 1 minute and 10 seconds long. The video is shot at the dead of night and is filmed in a rainforest type location. It's windy and rainy as the video is shot. As you play the video, the brutality begins immediately. You see the victim, who is wearing a black shirt, laying on the ground. He appears to be drifting in and out of consciousness. He looks to have suffered head trauma before filming even commenced. Immediately, the victim is struck twice in the head with an axe. You can't see the killer, but you can see the axe swing and hit the victim's head. After the second strike, the cameraman seems to kneel down and he puts the camera in the victim's face. He is bleeding profusely and has suffered severe facial damage, but he is still alive. The victim is making snoring type noises mixed in with gurgling, potentially after inhaling and swallowing blood. The victim isn't dead, as the person swinging the axe isn't swinging it hard enough to penetrate the skull. The look on the poor victim's face is haunting. The only way I can describe it is that his eyes begin almost to roll downwards, giving him the look of being cross-eyed. More than likely, this is a sign of severe head trauma and brain damage. The killer then strikes the victim in the face again with the axe on the bridge of the nose. Once again, this does not kill the victim. He is then struck a further 3 times, with the killer aiming for his neck. He hits the neck once, but hits the chest twice. Either the killer is purposely striking the victim in a way that isn't hard enough to cut into the flesh to prolong the suffering, or he is extremely weak. The cameraman then films the victim's face close up once again. He is covered in even more blood, but once again he is still alive, taking sharp quick breaths as his eyes roll and unfocus. The cameraman at this point appears to have blocked the speaker on his phone as he is recording, as the sound becomes very muffled. You can, however, still hear the victim breathing. The snoring noise has changed into wheezing type sounds. The killer then resumes his cruelty, striking the victim a further 4 times with the axe blade, but this time he appears to swing the axe harder, hitting the victim once on the neck, once in the mouth, once in the face, before swinging one final time, striking the victim just above the bridge of his nose, which hits the victim's eyes. On the last swing, the axe blade hits the victim's face horizontally so that the axe blade has crushed both of the victim's eyes and has penetrated the skull. The killer then lets go of the axe as it is jammed into the victim's head. The cameraman then takes another close-up shot as it sounds like he curses out the victim. The final shot of the victim is horrifying. The axe has been driven into the victim's face and is jammed into his skull, and somehow the victim is still alive. You still hear the victim wheezing and trying to breathe. His face has been completely ravaged by the axe blows. How someone can survive such an ordeal for so long is absolutely terrifying. Given the brutality of the video, I'm surprised that there is no information to go with it. I can't seem to find any reference of this case online, or who the victim and the perpetrators were. It takes a lot to shock me, but this video was extremely hard to watch. The final seconds are somewhat similar to the infamous Miss Pac-Man video, with the axe jammed horizontally into the victim's face, whilst him somehow still being alive. The video ends as the victim is still breathing. Once again, please do not search for this video. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. I have to say, after covering a few cases from Brazil now, the videos coming from that region are just as bad as those that come from Mexico, if not worse. They may not get as much coverage on social media and on online news sites, things of that nature, but the levels of brutality is honestly shocking, quite frankly. I would like to delve more into the backstories behind these videos, but the fact is many of them don't have any information to go with them, or at least that information is extremely hard to find. And yeah, that makes covering such videos a little trickier given my style of content. But yeah, if any of you guys have any cases from Brazil that has backstory to go with it, please do let me know, as I do want to cover the region in more detail. But anyway, as always, thank you guys for the support, it is much appreciated. If you could follow me on Twitter, that would be greatly appreciated. The link will be in the pinned comment, as well as following me on Twitch. I'm actually having a good time on Twitch. The streams have been really fun. We don't talk about what we talk about on this channel. It's honestly just a place to let our hair down, have fun. Quite frankly, I'm surprised I've not been banned on Twitch, because some of the conversations have been a little lowbrow, let's say. I'd also like to thank one of my Twitch subscribers, Palasonic. You really have been a great support, you know who you are, so thank you very much. But yeah, enough plugging my socials and my Twitch. But yeah, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.